Welcome to Frankly Speaking with Frank Portinari, the podcast that gains access to real and inspiring people. I'd just like to make a few announcements, but before that, I want to welcome today's guest, Ben Spann, who is an anti-knife activist and campaigner. We welcome our sponsors, Sheet Roofing Limited, specialists in all aspects of roofing and asphalt works, from residential to large and commercial properties. All work is covered with insurance-backed guarantees. Sheet Roofing Limited are a family company with over 50 years experience. And as I say, we thank them for our support. Sincere thanks to all those who continue to follow Frankly Speaking. It's very much appreciated. We would like some more of you to subscribe. Otherwise, we'll send the boys around. I'd also like to mention the amazing work carried out by the Alzheimer's Society. We recognise the help and the support they give to victims and their families. And later in the year, some of us who are connected with Frankly Speaking will be doing a sponsored walk. So we'll probably call on some of you to make a donation. Equally, I'd like to thank Mac the Hat Media for their technical support and advice. But what I really want to do is get down to business and speak to our guest today, Ben Spann. Ben, welcome to Frankly Speaking.
Cheers for having me on, Frank.
Ben, I've heard a lot of good things about you, and I've wanted to get you on the podcast for some time. I've clearly done some research and seen the great things that you're doing and how you're inspiring people. And one of the things we say about coming on to Frankly Speaking is we want real and inspiring people. And you certainly fit that criteria, Ben. So shall we start off a little bit about your early life, Ben, where you grew up, what your roots are?
Yeah. So in a village called Weston under Weatherly. It's a small village outside of Leamington. There wasn't many kids around. I had three brothers from my mum and dad's first marriage, from them being together. Then they separated, got remarried, the pair of them, and they had a child each, another brother and a sister. So I come from quite a big family. My background growing up was good. We never wanted for anything. My mum was always there for us. My dad was consistent. You know, he picked us up on a Wednesday and had us every weekend, religiously every single week, unless he was working abroad, which sometimes happened, not very often. We had holidays abroad. Yeah, so my background growing up was really good, to be honest. I can't really fault that.
What was your schooling like?
So I wasn't a classroom environment person. Struggled to concentrate. Probably classed as being disruptive. I was on these target cards they were called back then, which used to monitor my behaviour, etc. I've actually got a twin brother. His name's Eddie, and he was very much similar to me as well. He struggled. Eddie was a really intelligent guy, a lad, but he just chose to mess around basically. Whereas I struggled a bit more really than what he did. Yeah. So I think mine was more struggling to learn in the classrooms made me lose interest, and made me be the class clown basically. Yeah. So
did you find that the subjects you may have been interested in, do you think you were motivated enough by the teachers?
No, I'll be honest. I wasn't really interested in any subjects.
That's very honest of you, Ben.
People say to me that school was the best days of your life, but the day that I left school was the best day of my life. I disagree with it when people say that. I hated the routine of having to get up at the same time. Hated having to get on the bus to get to school. I just hated everything about it basically. So leaving school for me was the best thing that could have ever happened. So.
Right. Yeah, I've heard people say about that they've not necessarily felt that the school was structured, or the system wasn't structured to bring out the best in them. And the nearest I get to that is probably I'd have done English all day I'd have been quite happy to go in the morning and do English all day.
Yeah.
Probably with the exception of some sport, but that was really to replace the lessons I didn't want to do. So, yeah.
I mean, something I'm quite passionate about is the outdated school education system. I believe the education system is really outdated. Yeah. I believe that it's set up for the majority, which is probably the 85%, and it fails the other 15%. And they either get labelled disruptive, naughty, multiple different things. But really, the school just aren't geared up to. When you're in a class of 30, not every child fits into that environment well. And I probably would have learned better being in a smaller class and having more one-to-ones than anything. But schools just can't afford to run like that. You know, they've got to run with the big classes, and their way of dealing with that 15% is labelling them as being naughty, disruptive, whatever it is. So I believe there's a big market there, and them 15% tend to be the ones that go on to further in crime in later life, or to abuse of drugs or alcohol, etc.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. So,
what age did you leave, Ben?
So I was one of the youngest in my year. My birthday is August the 20th, so I was 15 when I left school.
Yeah, the same as I was. Well, actually, that's not strictly true. You could leave at 15, and I think I probably left near 14. If I'm honest. So
yeah.
So, what about aspirations work-wise? Was there any particular career you wanted to pursue?
Yeah, so I wanted to become an electrician, and the reason behind that was in my village there was a local guy, friends with my mum. He was an electrician, so I used to help work with him in my school holidays from about the age of 14, I think. And one of the main reasons why I'd done it was I used to make things and tinker around with things. And I took the plug off a phone charger that I had. And the way that I put it back together was filled the plug with tin foil and just rested all three cables onto the tin foil and plugged it in, and caused the horrendous bang, switched off all the electric in the house and everything. So that was sort of I wanted to know why that had happened. It caused a bit of uproar. My mum was probably watching EastEnders and that went off. My brother lost all his computer work he was doing, my older brother. So that caused uproar there. And I was sort of in a state of shock. I nearly blew myself to pieces, like I say. Yeah, that was the start of me wanting to become an electrician.
So you killed yourself before you started it?
Yeah, definitely. But that gave me it made me intrigued into what I actually done when I went wrong. Now I realise exactly. Well, I'm a fully qualified electrician now, so I have been since. Yeah, I done my apprenticeship at the age of 16. I ended up getting the sack from the first company I worked for selling cannabis. They basically found out what I was up to. I was selling it from whilst I was working. Ended up getting the sack for that. But I've always done everything the hard way and done everything arse backwards. If I'd stayed at school or concentrated at school and got the GCSEs I needed, then I would have progressed quicker in my apprenticeship. Because I did everything arse backwards and messed around at school, I had to redo my GCSEs, the maths, English and IT. At the time, it was called Key Skills. So I had to redo that as well as doing my electrical course. So yeah, it was. They kept me on at college, but I ended up. I think it was about my second year, end of my second year. So I only had a year left before I would have become a qualified electrician. So it's the story of my life, doing everything arse backwards, mate. To be honest. So.
You're not the first one we spoke to. Don't worry.
Yeah, no.
And I'm sure me and Matt that can tell you a few stories. Don't worry. Oh, you got in the long run. That's something to be applauded anyway. So
yeah,
that's good, Ben. That's good. So I've obviously done a little bit of research. How did you use some of your skills?
Yeah, so when I learned to become an electrician, started selling cannabis from the age of 16. And I've done that right up until there was a shortage of cannabis. So it used to get imported in from Netherlands, etc. And that's all dried up. and there was a massive shortage. And this cannabis was introduced, but it was all sprayed with glass and sand. It was, I don't know what they classed it as, but it was horrendous. It used to give you a sore throat and make you feel ill and all sorts. And this is when there was a big surge and people started doing home cultivation. So I stepped into the market where people needed electricity meters rigging. But I wasn't just bypassing the electric. I was doing it in a way that they were still paying for a bill. So I called it a dirty board. I introduced a dirty board into the house, which was a board that was coming off the main side of the electric. But then they still carried on paying for just the general household stuff was still, because one way that they caught people was through fluctuations of the electricity at the time. So if you went from just spending £10 a week on electric to then spending £30 a week, that was an indication that you was up to no good. Or the other way was just to bypass the meter, and that means you're not paying no electricity at all. So I introduced just a little scheme of or a little scam of just allowing them to have their cannabis crops paid for, or for free, and then still carrying on paying for the standard.
The domestic use, yeah.
Yeah, that's.
Go on, sorry, carry on.
I've done well out of it, to be honest. It started off with just doing it locally for a few friends, etc. But it soon ended up that I was travelling all over the country doing it. I mean, mainly in the Midlands, but I was going up to places like Kettering, Northampton, all over basically. So I made quite a lot of money out of doing it, to be honest. But it was, again, it was one of them things where I thought to myself, well, if I'd done 2 crops in 1 week, I wouldn't have to work for the rest of the week then, you know. So if I had the consistency of doing it 1 or 2 a day and doing that 7 days a week, I would have been a very rich man. But unfortunately,
I like it.
Yeah. So
were there any? I mean, that strikes me that there could be some danger in that, you know, because of the money involved. Did you ever feel you was at risk?
The one time that felt when I did feel at risk was when they asked me to get in the back of a van and blindfolded me. So that was, I understand the reasons behind it, but at the time I was a little bit nervous. I was thinking, fucking hell, what's going on here, sort of thing. But as the more and more I was doing, it ended up that I'd actually request to go into the back of the van or to be blindfolded, because that way then it eliminated, if anything ever happened that they got stolen or anything like that, it eliminates me out of the process, or I could never be.
I was just thinking that'd be your mitigating circumstances, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. So that was the first time was worrying, but once I got the gist of why it was happening, etc., then I instigated it myself. Then, you know. Yeah.
Once it became known that you were doing this, you know, I'm assuming people obviously knew you was earning money from it. Did anybody ever threaten you to take that money off you?
No, I've never been threatened for money in that respect. I've had incidents where I was selling cannabis and we've had incidents there, but not through the stealing of electricity. Again, it was something that wasn't common knowledge to everybody. You know, I was working discreetly for a customer. So it wasn't something that I was going around shouting my mouth off about. And it wasn't something that they was telling every Tom, Dick and Harry, you know. So it was sort of, we had a mutual understanding between each other. I would be recommended to their friends, or if they knew someone that wanted one doing, and they'd say, who done yours? Then that's how my clientele sort of expanded. So it ended up, I've done them for chip shops, I've done it for commercial premises, all sorts of places in the end. So it wasn't just cannabis cultivation I was doing it for. It ended up that I was doing it for all sorts of different reasons. But if they paid the money, I was more than happy to do it at the end of the day.
Yeah, utilise your skills.
Yeah, definitely.
So how long would you say this venture went on for, then, Ben?
It went on for a couple of years. I still get people asking me to do it now, to be honest, and it did carry on it carried on for a long time. But the main thing of me, it was just intermittently then, you know, maybe once every 2 months or once a year or twice a year. I ended up, one of the guys I consistently done it for, took me under his wing, called me his apprentice. We ended up cultivating cannabis together, basically. So I realised there was a market there, and became more intrigued in it. I was always a cannabis smoker. So it was just something. It was an avenue that it was something that was always probably going to happen, to be honest with you. But yeah, so the guy, a regular customer of me from me doing the electric, took me under his wing. I suppose he saw it as being a mutual business relationship, because he wasn't paying me then. I was just taking a profit out of the crops. So he didn't pay me to rig the electric. It was something that I was doing as part of the agreement sort of thing. So,
did you have a family at this time? Were you married at this time?
Yeah, so I've got a 15-year-old son. His name's Jacob. So I'm 36 now. I was 21 at the time. So yeah, he would have. He was around then. Yeah, definitely. Maybe in between. So he was sort of born in the middle of me doing the electric meters, I think. But he was definitely born when we were doing the crops.
Yeah. What does he do now? Is he still at school?
Yeah, he's still at school. It's like deja vu, to be honest, because he's going through exactly the same situation at school as what I went through. I found myself having meetings with the school and if not a meeting, definitely a phone call on a regular basis. He's just got no interest in school, and that's exactly how I was at his age. So I can sympathise with him. But
so he's going to be an electrician, then, basically.
Yeah,
I don't. Follow his old dad, isn't he?
Yes. Not too sure what route he's going to go down, but he definitely won't be working for me. That's for sure. So he gets it too easy if he works for me. But whatever he does, I hope he does. I hope he enjoys it, and I hope he does well. So I'll support him whatever he decides to do. To be honest.
Yeah. So did you get attention from the police at all?
Yeah, on a couple of occasions, it was alleged that we were caught in rooms by the police. One incident, there was a knock on the door. My pal was in there, thought it was the owner of the building. As he knocked on the door and he said police, and we were thinking, fuck off, it's not the police, sort of thing. Yeah. Peeled back the curtain and saw the police on the stab vest. Okay. And that's the arses fell out of us, mate. And all the entrances, all the exits or entrances, we blocked up to stop people from getting in. We never ever thought that it would stop us from getting out. So Palomon's trying to rip these stud wall downs that we built up to block the doors up to get out. And they were waiting for backup to come, etc. We must have been under investigation because of the way it all happened. It was CID that busted us. Yeah. It was a bit of a scary moment. I was due to go out for a meal with the wife, so she was expecting me back, and it ended up that I didn't come back. They kept us in. They had to speak to the guy in charge of the police station, superintendent, whoever it was. Because basically the electric was what they were waiting to turn off so they could make it safe, so they could empty the place, etc. It took them 8 hours to find out where the electric was coming from. Mm-hmm. So whoever rigged the electric there did a very good job of it.
Can't imagine who that was. Just can't imagine.
So they had to get an extension. They had to get an extension off the officer, off the copper in charge. To keep us in there because it took them that long to find out where the power was coming from. So,
Tell us a bit, Ben, about the techniques. You know, I mean, I'm trying to imagine what these places look like. Well, for a start, you know, where did people locate these farms? Presumably old buildings.
Yeah, so a lot of people just use rented properties. People I know were using properties on commercial land, so it was a storage container, basically yard. And at the beginning of it was a office, so it was taken over. The office was taken over, basically. So yeah, it was. That was where it was, and I think that it was grassed up. I think that someone had witnessed people going in and out of there, and that's how it became how it became on top, basically. So
what about in the countryside? Was that, you know, the more remote places, were there places that were accessible there?
Yeah, we tend to use buildings that were on farmland, to be honest. So we use multiple buildings. When the first one got caught, we had another 2 properties. The guy that owned them, he fair play to the guy, because he didn't have to do this, but because the first one got done and the rest were on his property as well, he got everything put into an Arctic truck and parked the Arctic truck on a dual carriageway and kept it there moved it around, but kept it out on the road for a few days, until until the heat died down a little bit. But yeah, he wasn't best pleased with this. Let's put it that way. We trashed his houses and caused him a lot of problems.
So I'm assuming you didn't actually get any criminal convictions for any of this.
No, so it's all been no further actions. So it all got NFA'd. Everything was circumstantial in there. So as far as the police are concerned, we were just caught in there, and that was it. So what they did, I mean, so there's certain things that they do. So they fingerprint the equipment to see if there's anything that can pinpoint you to it there. Took swabs off our hands to see if there was anything incriminating on that, so that the swabs would just pick up nutrients or actually resin from or the THC or the resin, anything that could link us to being in there, basically. But as we were just caught in a room, so we just stumbled across this property with these in there. Didn't know what was in there at the time, and we just stumbled across it all. And we were just caught in there at the time. So you would call us very unlucky people, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, exactly. Or lucky, whichever way you want to look at it.
Yeah. Lucky if I'd say unlucky, to be honest.
So at what point did you decide that things were getting a little bit too heavy for you, and maybe concentrate on just being an electrician?
So I've always dabbled in cannabis. How it started for me was I was a smoker. So when I was selling it, it started off me selling it. I realised there was a market to supply it to my friends because they were struggling to get it, and I was able to get it. So I started off just selling it to them. Then things sort of escalated where I was getting bigger and bigger, selling it to more and more people. And I stopped then selling it in smaller bits and started buying it in bigger amounts. I mean, at the peak when I was doing it, we were probably turning over. I was probably selling about 20 grams worth every 2, 3, 4 weeks. Nothing was consistent, But that was nothing to do with cultivating. That was just buying it off Joe Blogs and selling it to the community, basically. So. But people say when you say, "Oh, I'm selling 20 grams worth of bud," it sounds a lot. But when you're paying someone 20 grand and then you're sat with a little pile, you know what I mean? I'm not the one benefiting from it. It's the the ones you're paying the money to. But then that's probably going further up the chain as well. So he's probably taking his little wedge out of it and then paying it to somebody else. Until it gets to the top person. So I stopped doing the cultivating after the second time that we had an incident. Realised that if I ever got caught again, I would end up in jail. The first time we really did think that we'd be looking at a jail sentence. So I started doing some community work. So a boxing club that as a campaign, we're partners in a boxing club now. I actually wired that boxing club up to get a letter off them which I could give to the court to say that I was actually a good pillar of community and I'm doing some charity work, wiring up the boxing club for free, etc. And then it got NFA'd. I never went back to finish it off.
Have you got an interest in boxing, Ben?
Yeah, I like boxing, mate. I've always been interested in it, and it's something that I would have liked to have picked up on at an earlier age. But it was just smoking cannabis and everything else. My motivation wasn't there, and anything like that just seemed like hard work when you sat on the sofa stoned watching TV. It just didn't fit in at the time, So but it's something that I've took up now for the last nearly 18 months, I think, nearly I've been doing it now. But mainly for keeping my mind sane after I had a bit of a breakdown. So it's something that I've stuck with now, and I enjoy doing it. Yeah, definitely. It's good for your fitness.
How did you identify that, Ben, that you was having some mental health problems?
So for a long time, probably a good 6 months, I was just carrying with everyday life, but I knew things were getting bad for me. I was shutting myself indoors for days upon end. Wasn't really getting dressed. Turned my phone off. I was trying to run a business at the time, a garage conversion company. So I was shutting myself away. It was upsetting a lot of people that I had working for me and stuff couldn't get hold of me. So my business started to fail. So it took me a long time to realise that I was actually suffering with having a bit of a breakdown or suffering with depression. I had a friend of mine, Wiggy, I mention this all the time. He's a top guy. He was the best man at my wedding. And he knew when things were bad because my phone be off and he wouldn't hear from me for days upon end, and he'd come banging on the door. And he knew that I'd be hiding away and I'd just ignore the door, etc. So he'd be sticking his head through the letterbox and shouting me, "Ben, come and open the door." Or if the window was open, he'd be hanging through the window. So he made sure basically that I opened the door and I started talking to him, and he just made a joke out of everything. But thinking about it now, that was a bit of a help, you know. It was making me just come back to reality and normality. So yeah, the actual turning point for me was I was at a friend of mine, another lad's house, and I walked in there and we're just having a chat just about general things, and I just burst out into tears. I had tears streaming down my eyes, and I kept apologising to him. "Sorry, mate, I don't know what's wrong with me. I don't know what's up." And I think him and his missus were both took back and thinking, "Bloody hell, there's something not right here. You know, you need to, what's going on?" They were saying, "and you need to go and speak to your missus." So that's what I done. I came back, burst out into tears to my missus, and just explained to her how I was feeling. And to her, that was a massive weight off her shoulders because she thought I was up to all sorts of different things. She knew that she saw a big change in me. But she just couldn't pinpoint what it was. So she thought I was cheating on her, or she thought that all different things were going on in her head. But as soon as I opened up to her and told her what was going on, it was a massive weight off her shoulders. But also she could begin the process of helping me get better, in which she's done. But I mean, my girlfriend, I've treated her like a fool over the years, you know. I've been with her 19 years in March, since I was just turning 18. And she's been my rock, really, you know. Without her, I don't know where I would be now, or what sticky situations I would have been in. She's always brought me back to reality, and she's 7 years older than me, so she's older and wiser. She's always reined me in when when the lead's gone out too far. She's always pulled it back, you know. So yeah, I appreciate her so much now, especially after the breakdown. Before that, I was taking the piss a little bit, you know, up to things that I shouldn't be doing, treating her like a bit of a fool. But I appreciate her so much now, and the family time that we have together. And yes,
we all need it at some stage, mate. We all need reining in.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
The thing, but the breakdown was the best thing that could have happened to me because I was really money and orientated, so I'd be out. I'd put that before anything else. So if we were going out for food, or if I promised to sit down and watch a film with the family and something cropped up, I'd always go out and put them second best. Whereas now, they're my reason for being here. You know, her and Jacob. I mean, Jacob's grown up seeing things that no kid should really see. You know, I mean, it's probably not there's probably kids out there seeing worse, but again, that will reflect on their future of how they becoming their future self. Whereas I'm trying to repair that now and make amends with that because it's
fair play to you for doing it, and fair play to you even talking about it because obviously, in this day and age, it's still a bit of a problem men won't talk about. I know they do far more now, and it's good that they do, and I see far more of it on social media, and on different podcasts as well. Men are openly, talking about it, And I got a shock a few years ago. I was up in Scotland at a function, and the next day we were sitting in a hotel with four of us having breakfast together. And, one friend happened to mention his medication, and the other two knew what he was talking about, and I never had a clue what he was talking about. And they started talking about their own particular, mental health problems, all different in their own way, but all certainly came under the banner of mental health problems. And of course, you sit there, and I wouldn't say it in a blasé way, but you kind of sort of say to yourself, subconsciously, I'm all right. That's not just didn't care about them. It's probably a bit of gratitude that you was okay, but you thought you was okay. You thought you was okay. And I can think of times since when I've had a bit of a wobble and thought, blimey, do I need to have a conversation with somebody? I think it's the fact that I see so many other men talk so openly about it now.
Yeah.
That's a pressure gone straight away, isn't it? That you can phone up a mate, or a mate can say to you, how are you, mate? All right. And they're so used to you saying, yeah, I'm all right. Yeah, good as gold. I've been doing this. I've been doing that. They're not expecting you to suddenly say, do you know what? I don't feel all that clever. I don't feel right in myself. But at least we can do that now. And it's good that you're doing that as well. That you've given us an insight into your own experiences. And I respect you for that. I respect every man, every person. So I shouldn't say men. I respect all people that do that, because it helps all of us somewhere along the line,
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, and without disrespecting anyone that suffered with mental health, I mean, if you'd asked me this 2 years ago before I had my breakdown, I would have thought, I may not have said it, but I would have been thinking to myself, it's for the weak-minded, and it's, I'm not saying this to disrespect anyone that suffered with it, but I didn't understand. I didn't understand mental health, until it actually came and kicked me full on in the balls. That's when I realised all about it, So it is tough, but speaking is the best thing. I've always been quite an open person, I've always I've never really hid a lot of things. So for me to speak about it, I'd say it helps me, but at the same time, I'm just quite a genuine person, I just say things how it is, and that's it. So
you certainly come across. You certainly come across like that today, Ben. That's for sure. I think a particular group of people spring to mind that I think's made it a lot easier for all of us. It's people who've served in the armed forces, because we tend to respect them anyway. We tend to respect, their loyalty, their commitment, their bravery. So when they've come back from conflicts, it's clearly impacted them, mentally, obviously, some of them physically as well. But I think that when you see people like that sit there and talk about their problems, it probably empowers a lot of other people to say, well, if a serving soldier, or somebody else from the armed forces can sit there and talk about their problems, then I should be able to speak about mine. So I'll give them a lot of credit, but equally people like yourself. I think anybody that talks about it deserves a degree, of credit. And how do you feel in yourself now, Ben? Do you feel okay?
I feel great. I feel I'm in the best position, in the best place I've ever been in my life. I don't have to look over my shoulder. The kids can open the front door. I can go around wherever without the fear or the worry of anything. I've got no worries in life at all now. I'm getting a lot of good karma coming, or good. I don't know what the word is, because I don't think karma's a bad thing, isn't it? But I'm giving, and I'm getting a lot back. You see, so then that's I can't fault anything. I've got a good family life. I can't fault anything, to be honest.
Well, let's talk about that campaign now, Ben, because I've been following it for some while now on social media, and it's quite a diverse group of people who've jumped on board, from people that's been involved in community work, criminality, victims. It's the whole spectrum, isn't it? And I think that's to your credit. And we, on Frankly Speaking, certainly support the campaign, and clearly why I'm wearing the the shirt, you know, and I wear it quite a lot. You know, I'm quite open to people saying. Then they get a bit of a shock when they read the word knife.
Yeah.
What's that all about? But
yeah.
when they take the time to come a little bit closer or ask, you know, and you show them, you know, that it is actually, you know, change your life, put down your knife. It gives you an opportunity to explain it far more. So what motivated you to do that, Ben?
So whilst I was having during my breakdown, I bumped into a young lad that my girlfriend, or sorry, she's not my girlfriend, she's my wife. My wife has two older kids. They're, I think, 23 and 24 now. I've been with Louise 19 years nearly. So they were 3 and 4, I think, or 5 and 6. When Callum was around, Callum's always played football Saturday and a Sunday. He was a good football player. We spent our weekends travelling around to different places watching him play football. And there was always a young lad there called Kieran. And he used to turn up. He used to turn up smoking. He was probably about 12. He'd turn up smoking and he'd have a dirty kit, or he'd have his boots were too small, or he didn't have the money for the subs. But because he was such a good player, they allowed him to play without the money for subs. And a few years, probably Kieran would have been about 21, I think. I bumped into him in the pub. We had a good chat. And he started to do some work for me, but he was just about to go sent to prison for beating up a military police officer. And he'd also been stabbed in the head, in the arm, and the shoulder, I think it was. He'd been stabbed 3 times anyway. He was suffering with nightmares and tremors from it, so a bit of PTSD or post-traumatic stress. And he needed some help, really. He had no one there to help him and guide him, so I took it under myself. I took him under my wing, and me and my wife wrote reports for him. Went to court. I actually went to court with him. Spoke to his barrister. He was actually due to be sentenced, so he'd been convicted and found guilty in a Crown Court, and he was going back to sentencing. And we managed to get the conviction overturned, basically, as long as he adhered to certain terms. So whilst I was actually hurting, I was helping Kieran, which made me feel a little bit better in myself. It made me feel better about myself. So yeah, that was sort of on the forefront of why I started the campaign, if that makes sense. So when I came back from Ireland, I went to my brother's to sort my head out. This was after I found out what was happening to me. The doctors offered me tablets and I refused them. So I sort of self-medicated myself, took myself out of my everyday environment, went over to Ireland to my little brother's, stayed over there for a few weeks and slotted into his everyday life, which made me forget about a lot of problems that I had at home. And that was the start of me getting better, basically. So from that, I put together what happened with Kieran and came up with this campaign. It was just, I don't know, it's the whole thing's taken its own path. It was just something that came up as an idea with a bit of substance behind it. And everything from then till now has just taken its own path. I've guided it in a direction, but the whole thing is just naturally is gone in its own way, you know, from the people that are involved in it to, again, I only founded the name. That's the way I look at it. Everything else is, I can't take the credit for what's happened because it's a collective, a group of people that are involved that has created it what it is, made it what it is today, you know.
I will mention a couple of people because I know you work closely with Terry Ellis, and Terry, 10 minutes away from where I live, and you know we've had some good conversations, and I know he's a very he's a very strong advocate of the campaign because he's done a lot of good community work himself. So I'm glad you two have actually did get together at some stage because I think you both complement each other. And I've been, and I'm pleased to say that I've interviewed Terry on Frankly Speaking. Equally, I've interviewed Darren Barden, and I know Darren's very enthusiastic about the campaign. But it's good to also hear other people, being so enthusiastic about it. And when I talk to people, whether that's been Steve Rafe or Sean Atwood and James English. It's clearly on a roll, isn't it? It's clearly caught people's imaginations, and they want to give it its as much support as possible. I mean, if there's anybody else, they're the only people that I obviously know, but I do see it on social media. There's so many others.
Yeah, there's a few others. So we've got a girl called Hannah Brennan. We've got Brian Cockerell, the taxman, Vinnie Bradish. So these are the core people that make. I call them the admin team. So they're the people that we make the decisions as a group. We all have input into it. Although since the last lockdown, we were limited to what we could do. So we sort of everyone went off in their own direction to carry on with. Terry was writing books. Brian was writing a book as well. Darren was in a bit of a bad place, I believe, and he was working, etc. So everyone went off in their own direction during the last lockdown, and we're slowly now just getting back together again.
Let's talk about your bike ride, which obviously to highlight the campaign. I did want to actually be in London when you arrived to give you a bit of a welcome, but I was busy that day, and unfortunately I couldn't do that. But congratulations on what you did, what you achieved. So if you'd like to tell us a little bit more about that, that would be good.
Yeah, so somebody thought it would be a good idea to ride from Leamington Spa to London. It was meant to be 106 miles, I think, but we ended up doing 118. It was hard work. Afterwards, it was one of the most. It's probably the biggest achievement that I've ever done, to be honest. But during it, it was painful. I wish I'd never started it. I hadn't trained for it. You see, I had one pedal on my bike up until 3 days before I left. So I went and got the pedal fixed on the bike, and I thought for some reason that I'd just be able to ride 45 miles. Well, I did. But I just never realised how painful it was going to be, and my arse was in pieces. It was tough, but it was an achievement. Once we got the first day out of the way, it was a sense of satisfaction. And although it was tough to get back on the bike the next day to do the other 45 miles, it was really rewarding. It was something that I never thought that I'd be able to do, and we did it. So. Anthony Roberts was the guy that rode with me. Top guy he is. He's been on a few podcasts, Sean Atwood, etc.
Yeah, I will dance him as well then, yeah.
Yeah, no, he's a great guy. What we didn't realise was, so the first 45 miles we rode just outside Aylesbury.
Yeah, I know Aylesbury, yeah.
What we didn't realise the second day was after about 2 miles, the sat-nav that we were using took us onto the Grand Union Canal. So we were on road bikes, and trying to go along Grand Union Canal on a road bike was proving really difficult. So Anthony stopped. We stopped, and Anthony said, "Do you think it's worth ringing some local bike companies to see whether we can? They'll lend us some bikes, basically."
Yeah.
So I was I thought to myself, well, we can do, but I can't really see anyone actually allowing us to do that. But second phone call in, there was a company called Oztech Bikes, and they actually rented bikes out. And we spoke to the assistant manager, who spoke to the owner, ran us back about 15 minutes later and said, come and grab some mountain bike, guys.
Brilliant.
So,
brilliant.
Yeah, we left our road bikes there. We had to leave a bank card with them and fill out a few forms, etc. Yeah. But yeah, they lent us these mountain bikes, and it made life so much easier going along the canal. So, I mean, various stages along the canal, they was flooded. We had to go through all sorts of different terrain. It made it quite entertaining, you know. But yeah, it was good. It was really good, really good. I'm really pleased.
Did you have a total you was aiming for, or was it just anything that people were kind enough to donate?
Yeah, so we would have hoped to have made £1,000 was what the limit was. I think altogether we raised about £600, but any donation is a good donation in my opinion. Of course, yeah. It all helps go towards a good cause. So yeah, it was hard work. We don't, as a campaign, we've never just put up a GoFundMe page. I disagree with that. I believe that if you're going to put a GoFundMe page up, you need to give people something in return. So in return, they get our sweat and tears. We've done the 13-mile bike ride, run, walk, ride, we called it last time. So Terry was involved in it, Darren. Darren walked 13 miles. Vinny and Terry ran 13 miles. And I rode 13 miles. And that was actually the last time I was on a push bike. And prior to that, it was probably about 10 years before that. So they were my two last experiences on a bike, yeah.
I'll take you never rode home then.
No, most definitely not. I was took great pleasure of sitting on the train on the way home.
Sure. I bet you did. So the boxing side again, I see you're trying to encourage young people to put the gloves on or just basically their physical and mental health. Yeah,
so our campaign, we're actually partners in a boxing club. So since lockdown, the campaign has gone from strength to strength. We've nailed a lot of or built a lot of bridges with local authorities, etc. We're partners in a local boxing gym. Change Your Life, Put Down Your Knife are partners with Leamington Amateur Boxing Club. So we do great work there with the kids, but they're quite an established boxing club anyway. So they've always had the kids going in there. Most recently, we set up an initiative called Pop-Up Boxing. So this is where we take boxing to the kids, basically. So we go to the community centres and we do an hour session a week. And we get the kids in from all different areas, and we get them we just teach them the basics and the fundamentals of boxing, basically. It's non-contact, so they're just literally learning stance and guard combinations, but it's good, and the fitness side of it as well. So off the back of that initiative, the council have now got involved. We've done our first session funded by the council on Tuesday, just gone. Yeah. We've had to move it to one of the local parks that's prolific for county lines, where they're grooming kids into selling drugs. So what we're doing there is we get the people in so the kids, we have our normal people that turn up, but then we also have outreach teams that go around the parks and they draw the kids in. So kids that would never normally attend, we get them involved as well. So as part of a council / Change Your Life, Put Down Your Knife initiative that we've got going on. So they funded us a load of equipment. So yeah, it's on that respect, it's going really well. So,
and you got involved with local community politics as well, didn't you, Ben?
Yeah. So again, I was so fed up of not being heard and people just giving us promising the world and delivering nothing, So I thought to myself, how can I make a difference here, and how can I change? And to be honest, Frank, I think that was the turning point for the campaign. I think if I hadn't have done that, I would have still been at hitting brick walls. I ran for county councillor for Brunswick Ward in Leamington. I didn't do very well in terms of votes, but the way I look at it, I was a winner because I created so much awareness with the different county councillors and town councillors, the local police crime commissioner. I made a stir. They sort of had to stand up and listen to me and take note. And what was good about that was when I was walking around when we'd done the election count, all of these people were all there, obviously, to find out how they got on, etc. And I was walking around with my hoodie on with the campaign logo on, and I was actually getting stopped by people who recognised the logo, and they're saying, "Oh, are you Ben?" and blah blah blah, and engaging in conversations with these people. So these were Labour candidates and Conservative candidates, Green Party candidates. So yeah, it created a massive awareness, and I think from that moment, that's when the campaign started to kick off locally.
Yeah. So,
yeah,
well, hopefully other people that are supporting the campaign may well consider doing that. Probably not. Yeah. Probably not any expectations about winning or becoming a councillor, but certainly, as you just say, using the opportunity to publicise the campaign and heighten awareness and hold the local politicians, to account, and say, well, what are you doing? What are you doing? I was prepared to do something. What are you prepared to do?
Yeah, I made a noise, and I think that's what made them realise that most people, I think a lot of people would have thought about getting into politics to try and to create awareness, you know. So to me, it's about going above and beyond to achieve what you want to achieve. And to me, that was trying to get myself into politics so I could have got the results that I needed to get to help make a difference. Although I didn't get the result that I wanted, like I said, I still created awareness around the people in my area that were important to get on board. So, and that's what I've done. Something the big that's just happened, it's not been released yet, but I think I can talk about it, is a big incorporation called Spann. They've just started trading on the New York stock market. They've basically, we've done a brand association, and they've also just took me on as being a community development officer. So Spann are going to be involved with Changing Life, Put Down Your Knife. Spann are highly involved with professional boxers all over the country, not just all over the country, also in America.
Right.
Shannon Briggs is an ambassador for Spann. Roy Jones Jr. is an ambassador for Spann. So this is going to be something massive that's going to open up big doors for our campaign, definitely. So
brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant. And you're currently working on a big project yourself, which I read on social media earlier has pretty much taken over your life.
Yeah. So again, I come up with these bright ideas, and I think they're great at the time, and then when it comes to the crunch, I regret actually getting myself involved in them. So, but I'm not one to set myself up to fail, or I'm not one to allow myself to fail, if that makes sense. So, this boxing event is just, I've just had problems after problems. First of all, we were meant to have it at the Rico Arena, which we thought, because of COVID, we only sort of agreed it in principle when the second lot of restrictions were lifted. So we knew that it could go ahead. So that was the biggest obstacle. Then they hit me with the fact that Coventry City had just started playing there, which I did know that, but the fixtures hadn't been released. And it turns out that they were playing on the day that we wanted to hold the boxing event. So the deposit had been paid to them, etc. And it ended up with them refunding the deposit and just saying, bye, basically, we can't do anything for you. So rather than broadcast it to the world, and I went to plan B, which was to find another venue, which we've done now. And to be honest, it was probably a blessing in disguise, because the venue that we've got now is a more higher class venue. It's a little smaller, so it makes the venue a little bit more, or make the atmosphere a little bit better. But they've incorporated many things that the Rico were charging us a lot extra for. So lighting rigs and sounds, tables and chairs. So they've also got 4 big screens in there as well, so as people can see from different angles, and they play videos when the boxers are walking in and things, you know. So it was probably one of them things sent from above. That's you know, something that was meant to happen, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
remind us of the date, Ben.
It's August the 21st. It's in it's at a place called the Heart of England Conference Centre. It starts at 6 o'clock. Tickets are on sale from a company called the Little Box Office / the Faces Productions. So they can be accessed online. It's all done for a ticket agent. So as soon as you pay for the ticket, you get emailed a ticket instantly to your email address. And that allows you entry then into the venue. So, but we've had boxers have been pulling out left, right, and centre. It's just been a nightmare. I'm actually fighting on the night as well. So there's a big stress about, obviously, it's my first fight. So I've been told about the adrenaline rush that you get and how it just drains your energy. Yeah. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, bloody hell, what have I let myself in for now, you know? I'm stressing about the boxing event now. On the day I probably won't sleep the night before anyway, because of the stress of organising it all. Yeah. Then I've also committed to fighting on it, which is probably the worst thing I could have actually agreed to do. And we've just agreed to do it with a documentary maker as well, to film Change Your Life, Put Down Your Knife. So it's going to be Yeah, it's going to be a 5-part series. I can't say where it's going to be on at the moment, but it's going to be on some of the mainstream streaming services. So they're going to do Change Your Life, Put Down Your Knife, Terry Ellis, Ben Hatchett, Chris Lambriano. I'm sorry for whoever else I've missed out. I think that's only 4, but there's going to be someone else as well. I can't think of who it is. So they're going to be recording the event. So how it's going to work is it's going to be done a bit backwards. So they're going to record my first day of recording. It's going to be the boxing event, but that's going to be put at the end of the documentary. Yeah, because of timings of everything, they've got to film that date's set. You see, so it's got to be recorded on that day, but it won't be on until the end of the documentary. So it's being recorded first, but will be at the end of the documentary. Yeah, so. Yeah. But it's another great thing another great step forward, being able to say that we've had a documentary made about us alongside with some of them great ex-notorious criminals, really nice people. I know them all well. To be involved with the likes of them and be put onto a TV series with them is
brilliant.
It's really good.
Yeah. Well, what I'm going to do, Ben, is myself and Mac the Hat won't be able to make that. I've basically made other arrangements for that day, and I know he has as well. But what we'll do a deal with you. If you win your fight, we'll donate £100 to the campaign.
That's
and
brilliant.
Then, if you lose, we'll still send £100. Don't worry.
Yes,
you're going to get £100, whatever way you do. But try and win for us.
Yeah, no, I've got to win, mate, because, like I said, so I lost my stepdad to COVID in February, just gone, and it's one thing that I wish that he could have been there. It's something that he would have been really pleased about. Plus, everyone there. I'll probably be getting a lot of support from the people that are there, because obviously I've been quite close to a lot of them, So, failure is not an option, mate, I'm afraid. So I'm not going to fail.
You did your bike ride, didn't you? So you'll do this, mate.
That's what I've got in my head. I hope so anyway, because, I don't really fancy losing my first fight, to be honest.
What I'm going to do, Ben, before we finish up, is I'm just going to make a few announcements, and then I'll say our goodbyes. Again, I'd just like to thank our sponsors, Sheet Roofing Limited. Thank all those who continue to support the podcast. I obviously want to thank Mac the Hat Media for providing his technical advice and help. Again, I want to mention the Alzheimer's Society for all the good work they do. And what I would like to do before I go, I put together a little poem a while back, and I'd just like to do that poem, basically. This is what I'd like to say, is don't be the man that's waiting for the knock. Don't be the man that's standing in the dock. Don't be the man that's waiting for the key to turn in the lock. Don't be the man in the cell or down the block. Be that man that knows he can be someone. Be that man whose mother is proud to call him son. Be that man that looks back on life and know that he's won. Be that man that does what needs to be done. Change your life, put down your life. And Ben, thank you, mate, for all that you're doing, because you're helping to bring that about. You inspire a lot of other people, to get involved and share the message. And frankly speaking, we wish you all the very best, mate. You're doing a really fantastic job, and hopefully at some stage in the future, we can support you in other ways. We're certainly promoting your events, that's for sure. Yeah. And if there's anything we can take part in, we certainly will. So
no, I appreciate what you've done so far, Frank. I know you've won the T-shirt on multiple interviews, and I know you discussed about putting the link onto your website as well previously. Yeah. When you was first setting the website up, etc. So yeah, thanks for your support and thanks for what you do for us.
Well, the good news is a good friend, Johnny Kinch, is currently updating my website. So the campaign will be far more prominent on that. So I'll let you know when that comes to fruition. But again, thanks for coming on today, Ben. You know the criteria for coming on. We want real and inspiring people, and you certainly filled that for us today. You've been real and you've been inspiring. And as I say, we wish you all the best in your own health, your own family, and certainly your campaign. So all the best, mate. And I hope you win your fight. We hope you win your fight. And we hope the tournament is a great success on the day.
Thank you.
Lovely. Cheers, Ben. Ta-ra, mate.
Cheers, boss.